Hi, welcome to another episode of Strategic Insights, providing you with the latest update in the areas of business, technology, and management. I'm your host, Dr. Martin Lockstrom. Let's dive in. If you've been following the recent news flow around AI, you've probably heard many stories about lack of profit, high costs, and whether AI-dependent businesses will ever break even. Why is this the case? As a matter of fact, this is a big elephant in the room, so the answer is simpler than you can imagine. Stay tuned and I'll explain for you right now. Let's kick it off with a bit of history. Back in the 1970s and 80s, software was tightly bundled with hardware. You bought a computer and you got the software that ran it, mostly proprietary, tightly controlled by companies like IBM or Microsoft. This proprietary software model was lucrative. Companies would license their software to customers who paid big money for the right to use it, but had zero access to the underlying code. The big win here for software giants was control, intellectual property was locked up, pricing was premium, and businesses could generate significant profits from each sale. But there was a downside for customers: high costs and dependence on the vendors for every update or feature change. And this led to the next big shift. Fast forward to the 90s and early 2000s, and we saw a new model emerge: software as a product. Companies like Microsoft sold physical copies of software products like Windows and Office. You bought a CD or downloaded the package, paid for a license, and that was that. This model allowed software companies to scale their businesses quickly. Windows wasn't just running a few corporate computers anymore. It was running on PCs around the world. But there were still challenges. Piracy was a massive issue, and companies were only making money on the first sale. No recurring revenue, just that one-time licensing fee. So what's a better way to monetize software? Enter the SaaS model in the 2000s, software as a service. This one's still huge today. Instead of selling software as a one-time product, SaaS companies offer it as a service you can subscribe to, usually over the cloud. Think Salesforce, Google Workspace, or Adobe Creative Cloud. No more massive upfront payments. Instead, companies lock in users with monthly or annual fees, creating a steady stream of recurring revenue. This model was brilliant for business. Customers liked the lower upfront costs, and SaaS companies got the predictable cash flow. Plus, updates and bug fixes happened automatically, cutting down on the hassle for users. But SaaS wasn't the last big innovation in the software business model. Which brings us to the star of today's episode: open source software. Now, open source has a unique history. It really took off in the 90s, but its philosophy goes all the way back to the free software movement, started by Richard Stallman in the 80s. The basic idea is that the source code, the DNA of the software, is made freely available. Anybody can use it, modify it, or distribute it. And it's been a game changer for the tech world. But here's the big question: how do companies make money on open source software if they're giving it away for free? Let's unpack that. One of the early pioneers of open source business models was Red Hat. Red Hat's strategy was simple. The software was free, but the company made money by offering paid support, updates, and enterprise-level services. This model worked because large organizations still needed help setting up, maintaining, and optimizing the software. Another model that emerged was dual licensing. Offer a free open-source version of the software with basic features, and sell a premium version with advanced features under commercial licenses. Think MySQL before it was acquired by Oracle. Then there's the cloud and hosting approach. Companies like Elastic with Elasticsearch or MongoDB don't charge for the software itself. Instead, they offer managed cloud hosting services that take the complexity out of deploying and maintaining the software yourself. But here's where things get tricky. Open source software, while great for innovation, has a significant downside: commoditization. The minute your software is open sourced, the barriers to entry for competitors drop to zero. This has created a paradox where open source software fuels rapid innovation, but simultaneously drives down profitability. Let's pull in some strategic theory to better understand this. If you've ever taken a business strategy class, you've probably heard of Porter's 5 Forces. It's a framework for analyzing the competitive dynamics of an industry. And here's how open source software fits into it. First up, rivalry among competitors. When companies like Google or OpenAI open source their AI models, they're essentially giving their rivals the same tools. What happens? The tech gets commoditized. Everyone's using the same code, and that puts downward pressure on prices and profits. Next, threat of new entrants. Open source software lowers the barriers to entry. Any skilled developer can pick up the code and build something similar. You don't need a massive budget to get started in AI anymore. This increases competition and further reduces profitability and bargaining power of buyers. The more options customers have, the lower the prices get. If there are multiple free versions of similar software, why would a customer pay a premium? This is especially relevant in today's AI landscape, where companies like OpenAI, Meta, and others are using open source strategies to drive development in large language models, LLMs, and machine learning. While the open source model allows these companies to tap into global talent, think about all the developers who've contributed to improving models like GPT. It also creates a situation where competitors can build on the same open code and offer similar services. OpenAI has relied on its brand and the added value of premium services like its API or enterprise-level features, but the open source model presents a real challenge. Competitors can tweak the same LLM frameworks and undercut pricing, making it harder to maintain a strategic advantage. In this scenario, commoditization happens fast. So how do you make money? Post-production gets interesting. From a libertarian perspective, open source is fantastic. It aligns with values of freedom, transparency, and collaboration. But from a strategic commercial point of view, it's a nightmare for profitability. Open source accelerates the race to zero margins, especially in capital-intensive fields like AI. The real question is, how do tech leaders balance their commitment to open source ideals with the need to build sustainable, profitable businesses? So what's the takeaway? Open source isn't just a philosophy, it's a business model. And while it can drive incredible innovation, especially in fields like AI, it requires smart strategic thinking to avoid the commoditization trap. The tech world loves to innovate, but it seems that even the brightest minds sometimes overlook basic business fundamentals. In the world of AI and LLMs, companies need to find ways to monetize beyond the code itself, through support services, cloud offerings, or premium features, to ensure long-term profitability. Open source software, for all its virtues, doesn't guarantee commercial success. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Strategic Insights. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, it's not enough to build something incredible. You've got to figure out how to make it profitable too. And don't forget to take that Strategy 101 course, even if you're a nerdy college dropout. That's all for this episode. If you like it, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button in order to stay up to date with more awesome contents ahead. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.